Now, listen, guys, we have an amazing show lined up tonight. I'm talking about this. This is epic right here. This is epic and it's long away. The emails been going crazy. Everybody been hitting me up, all happy and ready to go, excited. I'm excited. My mom's excited. I mean, it's gonna be crazy. So listen, make sure y'all keep it locked in. Don't go anywhere. Y'all already know how we do it. It's nothing but big vibes. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back. Vibe Show Live, we are back. I'm your host again, Kano the Don, the Vibe King. And tonight we have a super special guest joining us on the show tonight. I am super happy, man. I'm talking about spanning 60 years. This is a legend, our legend. 101. I'm talking about legendary actor, director, teacher, and empowerment leader. Again, this is a one of one. I'm talking about the one and only Mr. Richard Lawson.
Yeah. Thank you. What an introduction. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I honestly, I'm so excited. I honestly don't even know where to begin because this journey is it's just been such a beautiful journey for you. Just doing some deep diving and just looking over the span of your journey. It's just been an amazing journey and still kicking strong, still knocking down doors, still wowing us on the screen. I mean, I'm just amazed here. But I want to go back though, a little bit. I want to go back just a little bit. Born in Loma Linda, California. Um,
Mhm.
would like to give the fans just a little bit of backstory, if you can, on what it was like growing up there.
Well, I didn't grow up in Loma Linda. Loma Linda is in Southern California, and it's the hospital that they took my mother to when she was visiting her sister in Riverside, California. My
Mm,
mother was from Oakland, California, and her sister lived in Riverside, which is uh, it's like Riverside is next to Los Angeles and 60 miles from Los Angeles. So it's the distance between Los Angeles and and the San Francisco Bay Area. Um, so I was just born in Loma Linda Hospital, but I grew up in Oakland, California for the
okay.
most part. Oakland and Riverside because I would go back and forth. My mother divorced when I was in the sixth grade. And
Okay.
so she was working two jobs, 11 to 7 and from 8 to 4. And it was tough being a single mother. So I would be shipped to Riverside to live with my aunt for a year. And I went from back and forth, Riverside, Oakland, Riverside, Oakland, Riverside, Oakland. And and so I really lived in both places as a kid. And then by the time I was in junior high school, it was most permanently in Oakland, California. I lived in all the
Right.
projects in Oakland.
Right. So growing up in Oakland, I mean, we already know that's rich soil. So many different amazing, legendary people come from that soil.
Right.
Um, tell me this though, because I just like I say, looking over your story, it's such a beautiful, beautiful journey. Um, now you were drafted, which I thought this part was absolutely amazing. You were drafted into the U.S. military, which definitely want to thank you for your services put in.
Thank you.
Talk to me about that as a young kid being drafted, because not signing up, you know, it's a difference, and I want people to understand that, you know, when you drafted, you know, I don't think you really have a choice, right?
No. Well, no, you don't. You fight it. You try to fight it. People do all kind of things to try to get out of the draft.
Right.
And I tried to. I had very poor vision. I had to wear glasses, and so when you took that eye test, I tried to claim like I was damn near blind. I almost thought about walking in there with a white stick.
Right.
I said, "No, that ain't gonna believe that." But I didn't get. I couldn't get out of the draft, and I went in and I was a medic, and I went to Vietnam um, as a combat medic, and,
Right.
uh, and so I got to
Also was
Vietnam.
wounded too, right?
Huh?
Also was wounded as well.
Well, I left there with a Purple Heart, and after being there for 11 months, and but it was really an incredible experience.
Right.
If the when you look back at stuff and you're able to lean the things that you're grateful for.
Hmm.
I was grateful in hindsight, and even during the process, as a medic, I was the only one that had any real personal contact or touch with someone. So that if I looked at your
Right.
hand, your arm, your leg, that where you need stitches or that wound needs to be cleaned up, or even picking my best friend's hand up out of the road
Uh,
because his arm got blown off, and he was a guitar player on the Kenny Burrell spectrum, and he wasn't going to be able to do that.
right.
Um, you get close to people because of that connection, and what was so fortunate and what I'm grateful for is the experience that I had because people came to me for additional things, like because of that connection, they'd say, "Hey, Doc, can I talk to you for a minute?" And they would
Right.
talk to me about their problems at home, or the psychological problems they're going to, or their fears, or they didn't want to die, or whatever it was. That I was like the medic, but I was also like the psychologist and the
Right.
marriage counselor and so many other things, that I could be of service to people. And and that was important because as I went on in life, I understood that my assignment on this planet is to be of service,
Right.
and that's what I've been all of my life, is to be of service, and as much now as ever, to be of service to people and finding ways where you can serve the culture, particularly as a black man. How can I serve the culture and move the culture forward? So that experience in Vietnam and the military proved to be very fortuitous because of what I learned about myself and I learned about humanity.
Right. And that was what I was going to ask you as well, because, you know, being in that space in the military, I wanted to ask you, like, how did you how did you process that all mentally? Because I mean, like, you know, combat is something totally different. You know,
Mhm.
like you said, you know, have to pick your friend's hand up and sewing people back together, while all of this stuff is going on. Just from a mental aspect though, because I can only just vision it or see it through TV of what they show me, but actually speaking with somebody who actually experienced it. And my aunt went to the Saudi Arabia war as well. And, she never quite was the same when she came back. She told me some
Mm.
stories and stuff, because she was one of the drivers and they were instructed that, it doesn't matter if it's kids or whatever, like you have to just keep going because
Yeah,
the kids got bombs strapped to them and stuff. Just
yeah,
from a mental aspect though, just a little bit. Just want to touch on that part before we move on.
yeah. Well, you know, this is going to sound a little bit, off point, but it's very much on point. Um, when I went to Ghana for the year of the return, I had just found out that I was 30% Ghanaian and 30% Nigerian, 20% Ghanaian.
Wow.
And when I went to the Cape Coast Castle and went to those dungeons where they processed the enslaved and they would herd them into these dungeons before they processed them to go to the point of no return, which meant they got on that boat and they would cross that ocean.
Right.
And I was down in the dungeons, which you go down, it's dug into the ground, and there's a window up there that they throw food and water and stuff down to the enslaved, which is down in this pit. And they would pack that room so thick with people that there was really not room to move or to very little place to sit. But they had to defecate and urinate on the floor, and that's where their food came down to, where they throw the food down to them.
Right.
And the idea of being able to survive that, and then being able to survive the passage on those boats, and then being enslaved and being able to survive enslavement and the treatment and the whips and the being of like chattel, I really recognize my resilience, because anybody who can survive that and the resilience, and here's what's important about the word resilience. Resilience means that it is something that's able to bend and then return to its original position. So
Wow.
therefore, it's like a elastic band that is pulled and stretched and then goes back to its original position, which meant that you had to have an original position to go back to. So you can't be resilient if you have no basis and no foundation. And it's not, if you don't have those roots in the ground where you can return to an original form. And
Right.
so therefore resilience is bouncing back to something that you know. Now, using that understanding of who I am innately, genetically, that I am from a resilient core and a resilient source, that when I went to Vietnam and when I look at all the traumas that I've had in my life, that I had a very strong connection to my source. And so therefore the traumas that I experienced, it bit me, but it didn't break me, because I was able to bounce back to my original source. So that when I went to Vietnam, when other traumas like plane crashes and other things, that those traumas only strengthen me. It doesn't defeat me. So there's wins and lessons rather than a loss is a stop, a lesson is just a reroute. And
Right.
so going to Vietnam and having that experience as a medic, that I was able to process that trauma
Hmm.
into knowledge and wisdom and strength. And it made me stronger coming back, even though the government, the city, I mean, the country rejected Vietnam veterans
Really?
because they, oh, yeah, we weren't heroes when we returned. We were villains. We were villains. We had
Can
to,
you explain?
we had
Can you
to,
explain that a little bit?
yeah, because America didn't agree with the Vietnam War. We
Right.
shouldn't have been there according to the politics at the time. So that any service person who spent time in Vietnam was actually almost considered, taking the side of the devil when we shouldn't have
Right.
been over there. And even
Right.
the Vietnamese people, um, uh, uh, Hanoi Hannah was a famous woman who used to get on the radio, and she would say, so brother, you fight here, you go home, you still a nigga. You still a
Wow.
nigga. You go home, they kick you out, they shoot you, they hang you. You a nigga, why you fight us? And it would be on the radio, and she was very effective, you
Wow.
know. And so, and Hanoi was the capital of North Vietnam,
Hmm.
and so it was all that propaganda. So we were not heroes, and so you came back, and you still had more trauma to confront when you got back to the United States. And so I'm in the middle of writing my memoir, and the title of it is Process, Pivot, and Proceed. And it is really about processing the shit that happens to you,
Right.
pivoting and finding the strength and proceed, so that you are never stopped by anything. You're like water. You shape yourself according to whatever it is that you need in order to survive. And
Can you say that again? I wanna write that down. That's strong. Process.
pivot and proceed. So you process the trauma, you pivot, and you proceed. You know, I can't control the things I cannot control, but what I can control is how I react to it.
Right.
And so therefore the trauma is based upon how I react and how I reposition myself, how I pivot from that and proceed, so that I'm not stuck. And I'm, like you say, people go to wars and they come back, and so many of my brothers and sisters wind up being stuck psychologically in that war,
Right.
and they are now the victim of it
Right.
rather than emboldened by it. And
Yes.
I'm emboldened by my traumas.
Right. I
Yeah.
want to thank you too for your services, the time you put in, and that's interesting. So the interesting thing to me, that's why I say, like, I really, really love your story, and I get so much inspiration from it,
Mm.
which is very, very interesting to me. So now you could have very well, when you completed services, you could have very well went into the medical field, but yet you
Mhm.
didn't. You went a different direction. Can we can we pick up from that point right there to where we get into acting and going into theater, and what made that path go a different way and not go into the medical field?
Well, when I got out early, um, I didn't even consider going into the medical field. Even though my medical experience in Vietnam far surpassed a lot of people, a lot of doctors in this
Right.
country,
Right.
because I had to function as a doctor. There were no doctors out in the boonies,
Right.
so I had to function as a doctor, and I had to function as a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a marriage counselor and all those things. So I didn't have a lot of time to think about woe was me.
Right.
I was dealing with the real traumas that were happening in front of
Right.
me through
Selfless.
other
Very,
people.
very selfless.
Have to be, that was my job, or at least the base fundamental aspect of it was my job. But I mean, I helped deliver a baby over there. I dealt with
Wow.
all kind of shit, man, all kind of shit. Yes. I don't even want to tell the horror stories that I dealt with.
Right.
And but in coming back, and I got out early, just to go to school to get out. Um, that the first thing I thought about is that I wanted to be a lawyer, and but because of the quickest way out of the army was junior college, because that anybody could go in there. If you go to a 4-year college, then you have to qualify.
Right.
And so junior college, and then I'll get over to the 4-year school. So junior college, and I said, well, I want to be a lawyer. So in junior college, there are no law classes. So how about joining the debate team?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the speech department to join the debate team, and while I was there, this woman heard my voice, asked me to get involved in Reader's Theater, and I did. And then that was my first time in front of an audience, and man, I killed it. And I was
Right.
like, wow, this is interesting. And so from that, I was asked to do a musical called Golden Boy,
Mm-hmm.
and that Sammy Davis did on Broadway. And I learned how to sing, dance, and act, and that was my first experience on stage, and I did very well with that as well. And on my closing night, which was happened to be my birthday, I had a revelation, an epiphany that this is why God put me on this earth, is to be an artist. And from
Wow.
that moment to this one, I've been on vacation. So, I've been 60 years, 57 some years in the business. And, I mean, I love what I do. And I'm put here to do it. And interestingly enough, it is through what I do that I'm able to be of service to
Exactly.
many thousands of people.
Exactly.
It's a ministry in a sense, because of the fact that if I can help people achieve their dreams, or to realize in some way that all things are possible, and that that dreams don't have expiration dates, that I'm doing my job.
Right.
And I'm very proud of the job that I've done thus far in terms of being of service to other people through their emotional life, through the characters that I play, to their literature, to their understanding of themselves, about relationships, about love, about so many things. And then
Right.
because I teach, I'm able to impart that to other potential artists. And so, yeah, man, it's like, it's kind of like a charmed life
It
to a
is.
certain
It
degree.
really is. It really is. And that's what's exciting to me. It excites me because the thing about it is, when I got into this, I enjoy most, I interview a lot of people, but the ones I enjoy the most are the people that I admire the most.
Mm,
The ones that have so much to pour, so much that you can learn from them, the teachers of the arts. And that's why, I was so excited to get this opportunity, because it's really a blessing,
Mm.
just to have the opportunity to be able to talk to you, um, just to embark into your story, and also just to learn, just
Mm.
to learn. I just feel like it's so important, like what you're doing with teaching, because a lot of people get into business and they just continue to excel, and that's cool. But like, you are passionate about teaching and developing and helping people get to the next level, because you know how it is in the business. A lot of people don't have that guidance. A lot of people don't have that, and they end up derailing. We see a lot of good people derailing because they don't have somebody that they can get under somebody's wing, that and learn. How important is
Right.
that to you? I mean, it has to be something that you're passionate about, because I mean, you have touched and inspired and guided so many different, I'm talking about major people. With so many people, I can't even name all of these people, but people would be shocked and surprised.
Mm. Maybe. Yeah. Well, I want to first give credit where I heard this, which is Denzel says all the time, and I completely agree that the first part of your life is about learning,
Hmm.
and the second part of your life is about earning, and the third part of your life is about returning. And
Mm.
so, therefore, learn, earn, return. And you can also return while you earn. Uh, and that's what I wanted to do, was to make sure that the return was always there on some level or another, And even in the earning process, you can give it away, because you can't keep it unless you give it away. And,
Right.
uh, borrowing another thing that I heard Denzel say, it's Denzel actually. His name is Denzel. The other thing I heard Denzel say is you ain't never gonna find no hearse following no U-Haul following the hearse. You don't bury the U-Haul with who's in the hearse. You know what I mean? So you can't take it with you, so you might as well give it away. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
and the more you give it away, the more you can keep it. So
Right.
I'm blessed in the fact that I'm doing what I truly love and truly believe in, and that people can benefit. One of the great stories for me is there's a young man who I met through some friends of mine, and I had a foundation um, that he donated to, and then
Hmm.
he said, "I want to go to lunch with you." I said, "Oh, absolutely." So we went to lunch, and he walked in, and when he came, he was coming, his arms was out, and he said, "Dad," and he hugged me tight,
Right.
and I said, "Okay." I said, "You want to explain the dad thing?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "When I was growing up, I had a very abusive father,
Hmm.
and I was not close to my father at all. I hated him because he was so abusive. I mean, like, really um, unnecessarily abusive, and
Right.
and I hated him. And so I would spend my time in my room because I just didn't want to be around him." And he said, "When I found Dynasty, I saw this man who was rich, and he was wealthy, and he made his own money, and he had as much money as Blake Carrington." He
Hmm.
said, "That's what I want. That's what I want." And he said he would watch that show religiously, and just the way that I carried myself and my character, and the way that I dealt with people, and the fact that I was rich, was everything he needed to be his a silent mentor to him.
Hmm.
So him meeting me, it was like he created a relationship with his dad, and
Wow, that's deep.
and he had a relationship with me that he never had with his dad. And so I'm happy to be that, you know what I mean, in terms
Right.
of someone, but it's through the work, you know, that bridge and that healing component can happen. And so there are so many stories like that in my universe that I'm just so pleased to be able to be that for
Right.
people, you know, and it's one
Right.
of the most satisfying things about what I do is the way it comes back to me in ways like that.
Let me ask you this about balance, like, because, you know, having a 60-year career, decorated career, I've everything that you've ever touched, you know, has always been fully believable. You know,
Mm.
every character, you know, I mean, it's perfected. Um, I want to ask you, you know, is there, when it comes down to you playing certain roles, is it a way that you channel to get out of the character? Um, I wanted to ask you that because, you know, some of these characters that's being played, you can get lost in these characters as well. Is it easy for you to, once the role is done, or um, to just turn that character off? Or you have to, I've interviewed somebody that had to actually go through therapy to actually get all the way out of that character. The character was that strong.
Well, I understand that, and I know people who've been challenged by that. Uh, for me, uh, I spend so many hours in terms of understanding uh, the people that I choose to inhabit,
Mhm.
and there's it's not like I am just completely uh, taking a vacation from Richard to go play this person.
Right, right,
I am borrowing from Richard to share with the character that I play, along with all the other stuff that I've learned about this character.
hmm
Um, and so when I don't, I'm not a method actor where I have to live in this character 24/7.
right,
Um, when I go to work and I pour myself into turning over every stone that is going to make this person come alive.
hmm
When by the time I get through reading the script over and over and over and over and over again, that I'm asking the next question about who is he, how are we alike, and how are we different, and I can supply how we're alike because I know the parts that is within me that I can borrow to the character. Um, that I'm able to imbue myself into this character and take whatever I need to learn from the outside. So it's a
right.
combination of two things. Like I just got through playing Reverend Al Sharpton
I
in
can see that.
in a in a film called Aftershock, the Nicole P. Bell story, and uh, it was really fascinating trying to learn who he was and his
hmm
cadence, and really understand where he came from and his influence. You know, James Brown was his godfather,
Right.
and he grew up as a proponent and was like a father figure to him. So if you look at the way he looks and the way he combs his hair,
That's
it's like
right. That's
James
right.
Brown. And when he talks, you know, he he almost talks like a blues singer, you
Yeah.
know, so
Yeah.
that when he talks, he has a cadence that is extended in terms of the sound. And he talks and his voice is higher,
Right.
in its range. And so learning these things about him and learning the influence rather than just mimicking him,
Mm-hmm.
I try to learn him what influences those things. And so musically speaking, he's coming from his influences. And so he's really like a blues singer.
Right. I never
And
looked at it like that. This is
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So I learn all that and I can then drink that fluid. I can drink that and it can affect my DNA, but it doesn't become me. It
Mhm.
influences me. And so therefore I'm heavily influenced, but not overtaken by characters. Now I
Mm.
can make it, because it's my job to make you think that I'm overtaken, and I am for the moment that I'm in it, but I can let it go because of the fact that it's not, it's what I do, it's not who I am. So I don't ever have an experience. Well, I take that back. The one experience that I did have is that I was playing a character in a play called Stringers,
Mhm.
where my character kills two people in the play,
Wow.
and 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 after the play or during the play, you know, men would pass out or have heart attacks. Not
Mhm.
all the time, but 14 of them did during the
Right.
course of this run. That uh, and the thing about it is that in order to elicit that, you have to go there in
Mhm.
regards to the mentality of what it takes in order to stab somebody.
Right.
And I did it in LA and I did it in San Francisco. And and then I found myself at a certain point starting to get headaches.
Mm.
And then I knew it was time for me to bow out. And I called Howard Rollins to come and take my place in this play. And he did.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, uh, so yeah, but I had to get out of that because one night it was like it, it got so into it, and the actor was pushing me so much that it was like the only choice that I would have is to be really stab this motherfucker because he pushed my character to a point that I'm not gonna let you make Carlisle weak because the
Yeah.
play we lose the play is lost if Carlisle is weak.
Right.
If you get comfortable with Carlisle, then the play is over with. And it was like, and the stage manager never let this guy, the guy was playing him through his ego, not through the writer's reality of what he
Right.
wanted of his character. And it was like, you know what? I'm gonna stab this nigga in his neck.
Right.
So I got to, I'm just gonna, I've done it enough. I'm good. I'm not gonna
Right.
change the complexity of the play because, it's like, now, it was time for me to go.
Yeah, I got to
You
get out of here.
yeah,
Right.
I gotta get out of here because
I love that.
I'm getting ready to go to the next dynamic.
Right. I love that. I love that. At the level that you own now, um, is it any roles that you regret you passed up or at all? If looking back at it, that you can share with us?
um, no, I the roles that I didn't get wasn't meant for me.
Mhm.
and so I'm not missing anything in that regard. Um, the roles that I wanted to play is not beyond me. I can still do it. I can't necessarily play those parts, but I can produce the like for instance, there's one project where Alexander Dumas uh, is a French black Frenchman who wrote uh, Three Musketeers, The Man in the Iron Mask, Count
Oh
of
wow.
Monte Cristo.
Hmm.
He wrote those, and he was a famous writer. Um, his son is Alexander Dumas père and Alexander Dumas fils. His son wrote Camille, which is another famous uh, uh, piece of literature. But the father, who I wanted to play, was Thomas Alexander Dumas, who was the general of the Queen's army in France, and Napoleon was the general of the King's army. And they wanted
Right.
to put those two armies together and have one person be the general. And he lived in a village away from Paris. And they sent the messenger to come get him to come to Paris so that they can make the decision between him and Napoleon.
Right.
And his wife failed to tell him, deliver the message, because he was always gone and she didn't want him to be leaving right away. So he never got the message. So by the time he heard about it and got to Paris, they decided on Napoleon. And Napoleon hated him and sent him to Egypt to pillage the pyramids, and he refused to do so. And then, and so he had Thomas poisoned, and Thomas wound up spending a couple of years blinded by the poison on this
Wow.
little Greek island, and then finally made his way back to France. And he was weakened by the poison, but he was a man of well known for his strengths and
Hmm.
his ability, and he won conquest after conquest, fighting wars for France, and he was a decorated warrior soldier. And so I wanted to do, like back in the day they had like these movie of the weeks, and I wanted to do a three-part movie of the week, so it'd be 2 hours each night.
Hmm.
And so we would cover Thomas Alexander Dumas, Alexander Dumas père, Alexander Dumas fils, and so the two sons. And
Hmm.
and the literature is just so famous, but most people don't know that Alexander Dumas was a black man.
Yeah, I'm sitting here like, wow.
Yeah, look him up,
Oh, I'm
research.
definitely gonna look it up. I'm definitely gonna look
Yeah,
it up.
hmm
I'm
yeah.
definitely
That's
listening.
but that's not a done deal yet. I mean, I can still do that. I mean, I can still put it together and make it a movie, or I can do a series would be actually the best kind of thing, because then you'd be able to get it all over the course of a season. You
Right.
know, yeah.
What do you enjoy most? You enjoy film, TV, or theater? Theater.
Uh, Theater. I came from the theater.
Hmm.
Um, I think they serve different functions. It depends on what it is. You know,
Right.
it's like it's like this thing that I'm doing right now, which happens to be one of the most watched um, series in the history of Netflix and other just
I
about
already know.
anything. Because Beauty and Black uh, I think accumulatively, um, I did the research today, or my assistant did the research, and I think we have uh, had 8 billion minutes viewed.
I'm
8
telling you.
billion minutes. And so that many eyeballs, and when you think about what you can do with that kind of airtime
Hmm.
in terms of the number of people who've seen my face,
Right.
that you look in terms of, well, how can I monetize that?
Exactly.
And the ways to monetize that and the various ways you can do that, that's huge. Um, Film is an incredible medium because film can, a great film can make a difference uh, so quickly and really change people's thinkings, or at least acknowledge and put on the landscape something that people need to see, read about, think about, touch emotionally, um, uh, either psychologically, whatever. It's a powerful medium. And especially during times of war, it's very powerful. But
Right.
stage, man, there's nothing like stage to change somebody's life. And man, I've done like that streamers, that play that I was in, uh, where people passed out.
Hmm.
Man, you talk about powerful experiences. Leaving the theater, when theater is that good, if you go to Broadway and you look at something, I went to Broadway, and every show I go to see, just God, it makes me want to get up there because of the fact that you see people who are able to leave their bodies for 2 hours while they
Right.
transport and get caught up in this life and this circumstance and this situation and this musical and this, you know, and there's nothing like theater. So they're different mediums and they do different things.
Right.
The medium that you're in terms of, podcasting, um, that's a powerful medium too, in terms of like, I didn't resist. I just haven't jumped on, somebody said, man, you got to do a podcast. This was like 10 years ago.
You
And I
really should.
never wound up doing it. But if I had been on the pod, I would have probably one of the hottest podcasts.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Lawson. If you think about, I'm saying, if you think about, first of all, the relationships that you've accumulated, and all of the people that absolutely love you. I mean, it's a no-brainer at this point,
Yeah.
because the difference with yours is the stories.
Hmm.
Like, it's so much information and so much history that things people don't even know. That's why I love talking to you. I love watching you on TV. I just
Hmm.
admire you. I was just talking to my mom, and when I showed my mom the flyer, she was like, "You are not interviewing him." I'm like, I am." You know what I mean? Like, I'm saying, you have that type of impact. Not only that, but just the way that you carry yourself. That's why I said one of one, because, like, for you at the level that you're on right now, and that's why I'm so grateful, because even now, with everything that I've accomplished without having any major backing or anything like that or whatever, I've been able to accomplish things just by kind of sticking to my vision of how I wanted the show to be. I wanted to be able to give the living, people that I love and admire, grew up on, even opportunities for new up and coming people or whatever, who might not be able to get on the breakfast clubs and all these other places where you have to blow up first or whatever. My whole vision for the Vibe Show was to do what I'm doing right now, and that's to tell you how much I admire you, tell you how much you are inspiration and how much you appreciate it and how much you loved, and how much people care about you, because you're always working, you always, constantly creating, in the space and in the arts. But it's just like, I just I want to be able to tell you how important you are to me. You know what
Thank
I
you.
mean? Like how much of an inspiration you are to me, how much I'm appreciated. I appreciate you taking time, even at the level that you're on, because I get turned down. They'll tell you you're not big enough, or
Mm,
you gotta grow a little bit more, whatever. But that right, this means everything to me, Mr. Lawson, because
yeah.
like you're really a staple in our community, like really, and I'm
Thank
grateful.
you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, your words really mean a lot to me. They touch me. I mean, I don't see myself as anything other than just me and doing what I do. Stature and all of that uh, doesn't mean anything to me. It's in
Right.
terms of, am I going to move the needle in somebody's life? And so, you know, um, so I appreciate you saying that, and appreciate you having those feelings, and whoever I can touch on whatever level I can touch them on is important to me. So that's why I'm out here, even at my age, where I'm just getting started, really.
Right.
I should say I'm just progressing. But on another hand, it is just it's constantly restarting, because there's always some new shit that's coming along.
Absolutely.
It's like
It's moving
the
faster
whole
than ever
AI,
now.
the whole AI thing, man. I am trying to learn that.
I was going to ask you, that was one of my questions. I was going to ask you how you felt about that because, coming from your journey, you've seen this thing constantly evolve and change. And here's another transition. We got to, try to learn this, and we got to try to, I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Well, listen. As a little boy, I would go to church with my grandparents in Lafayette, Louisiana, in a horse and a
Lafayette.
buggy.
I know
I would ride in
Lafayette.
the back of the horse and the buggy, right?
Right.
And so by the time I got to church, I would have to get off, and they would have to dust me off, because that dust was kicked up, and you bouncing like this, going down them little hard roads and stuff.
Right.
And you get there, you got to dust off, and then you go in and you get the word, and you get back on there, and you get back going back home. And so now the bullet train is here. So it's going from 2, 3, 4 miles an hour to 300 miles an hour. That's a
Exactly.
lot of time and a lot of stuff and transitions and seasons that you
Right.
go through. And the one thing for me is that I've always been trying to stay ahead of the game in terms of understanding technology, so that I
Hmm.
can take all the old school stuff that I know and learn how to deliver it in the 21st century technology. So
Mm.
AI is something that I am utilizing, and utilizing it in a way that doesn't harm or take jobs away from people, but
Right.
can enhance art in itself. And so I'm looking for the balance between between forward movement, and then maintaining the skill. There's not many cabinet makers anymore.
Right.
There's free bag. There's what's the word? There's prefab wood that you nail together. But in
Hmm.
terms of cabinet makers, where they can design, like
Right.
If you go to Paris, every building has ornate structure, and the windows have ornate things around it, and there's gold, facing, and there's real intricate design in the building, that you see a whole body of work,
Right.
you
Amazing
know,
architecture.
amazing architecture, amazing artwork, and everything, right?
Hmm.
Well, art, the entirety of art that there has been amazing architecture in creating characters and creating film and creating
Right.
moments on the stage and all like that. But technology is moving forward. So how do you find the balance between organic art and technology? And because the toothpaste is out the tube, you can't put it back in.
Right.
And they're not going to stop using the toothpaste. They're just going to improve the way that it comes out of the tube.
Hmm.
And if you don't get with that, then you're behind that. And if you're behind that, then you're complaining about it.
Yes.
Or you're looking for somebody who does have that skill to work for you, and then you're at effect to it because you don't control it.
Mm.
And I want to be able to control my universe. So I'm learning technology. I'm learning it in a way that is useful. You know what I mean? I'm now in the vertical world, the vertical micro filmmaking world.
Hmm.
And so that is a combination of technology and live action. So that I'm still hiring the same people that I'm hiring. We're just doing it in a different way. Instead of
Right.
like using somebody, there's one film where he goes into disguises. Well, if I go and pay the person to build the prostheses, I'm
Hmm.
talking $20,000, $30,000,
Right.
or I'm talking a lot of money, and I'm talking a lot of time to apply and do all of that.
Right.
Where with AI, you can code that to where that face goes on and everything else goes on in a matter of minutes, as opposed to spending hours
Right.
and production time and making the budget so that we can't afford to shoot that. We can't afford to do it that way, so let's not do it at all. No,
Right.
let's find the balance between these two worlds so we can put that up, and and the film can be seen, and it's everybody's happy. Maybe
Right.
not the person who's making the prostheses, but then what I'd say to the person making the prostheses is learn to do it digitally
Right.
rather than practically. You know what I
Right.
mean? You
Yeah,
know,
and that was my only thing like that. I like the way that you broke that down. Because I always like to ask people, I like to get their thoughts on how they feel because everybody got different feelings about it. And that was my main thing. My main thing was I didn't want people to lose opportunities or lose jobs. That was the thing that bothered me because it's a lot of conversation and stuff going on, and a lot of people are concerned. They
I
got
get
the
it.
CGI films and stuff now, and directors and people like that are finding ways to cut costs, and even in the employment world, people, a lot of jobs being cut. So
Let me
it's
give you
so
an
many
example.
different layers to it.
Let me give you an example. So my grandfather had these two mules, Tony and
Right.
Marshall, and he'd get out there from dawn to dusk, plowing them fields. He'd plowing the cotton, plowing the corn, plowing the sugar, plowing the pepper, and in order to harvest, he would take days to harvest with these two mules.
Right.
My uncle, his son, had a tractor and he was plowing his property. But it would take him hours, sometimes minutes, to do with that tractor what my grandfather would do with the mules.
Hmm.
He would, and no, he would take him minutes to take my grandfather hours. It'd take him hours to take my grandfather days. Well, just in terms of economy, in terms of harvest,
Hmm.
my uncle would harvest his fields, and then he'd go harvest somebody else's fields, and he'd go harvest somebody else's fields. go harvest somebody else's fields while my grandfather was harvesting his one field.
Right.
And so technology moves at a pace that we have to keep up with. It's like, you're gonna stay with the locomotive where you burning coal, where you can get up to like 60, 70 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour,
Right.
or are you operating on electricity where you can get up to 180 miles an hour
Mm-hmm.
and moving people back and forth? Are you going to fly the twin engine from transcontinental, uh, or over the seas, or are you going to fly that supersonic jet? Should you not make the supersonic jet because you want to hold on to the fact that more people are working?
Right.
I mean, it's like somewhere we have to, without slowing down technology, unless we want to stop technology, then we got to keep up with it, and we got to stay ahead of it. Now that's the argument. And now you can imagine at my age how many different transitions I've seen.
Yeah.
How many different things have come across, that the changes that I've made, it's like big time, big time. But I was the first one to be on Zoom. I was on Zoom in 2005 when the owner of Zoom, was still the tech person. And I was having classes from all over the world in 2005, 2006, because I was a working actor. So I go to Australia to be the first Black man to star in a series in Australia. And at night I'd go home and I would teach my class, because they would Zoom in to the classroom and I could teach from Melbourne, Australia, to my class in Los Angeles, or from Paris, or from India, or from Amsterdam, or from Canada, or from Mexico, or from Hawaii, or from Jamaica, or from South Africa. I taught my classes from all over those places because technology was there, you know what I mean? And I didn't have to close down until I got back. And so I'm a technology person. They call me the gadget man. Because I be having gadgets.
I love that though.
Gadgets that work.
I love that. I love that. Going back to Beauty in Black though, and your character, it's just it's flawless, man. Like, are you having fun? You look like you're having fun, in that character. I love your character. How much, and I gotta ask you this, how much of your character is you in a way?
Well, a good deal of him. Listen, we have the beautiful thing about art, that if you look at, one of the things that I teach is the fact that we have to understand our assets and our liabilities, because we have to manage both sides.
Right.
It's sort of like 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark. You have to manage both. They're two completely different things, two different animals on both sides. Animals that thrive in the daytime don't at night, and they're different animals at night. The owl is a night owl. He's a night owl. The eagle is a day. They both are carnivores.
Right.
But they operate differently and their behavior is different. So you have to understand your assets and your liabilities. And so I borrow my liabilities, that which I have to manage, my jealousies, my anything that's dark, that's evil, my selfishness, my One second. Manny, I'm on I'll call you back. Okay, thank you. Uh, Speaking of Aftershock, Manny produced Aftershock. Um, uh, so I take the darker part of myself that I had to manage. The part of myself, I'll tell you a story. I was playing golf with a very, 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 very famous person.
Right.
Hall of Fame person.
What?
And we was going back and forth. We got back and forth, right? I beat him, and we were playing for a little bit of money. But this was the most cheatingest nigga I've ever seen in my life. Now, it's an interesting thing because on the golf course, I hated his ass.
Right.
Everybody else did too. But in life, I admired him. Mm-hmm. The man he was, and I have to accept that he just did not like to lose, and he would do anything not to lose on the golf course. So we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. One day, it's this. Every day he had some complaint, and he was intimidating. He would try to intimidate you. It was like he did intimidate me in the very beginning, and then one day he did something that broke that spell for me. And so I'd kick his ass on the golf course, take money. I'd lose here and there, but mostly I was winning, right?
Right.
And this one day something happened. He hit a ball, and I'm standing 10 feet from him because he was one that you had to watch because he was going to tee the ball up and move the ball, drop balls and all that shit. One day he hit a ball off the tee, and it was down this ravine, and the ball went down there and couldn't find it. Nobody could find it. And I passed this one ball that had Japanese writing on it, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, no, that ain't his. And I went up to the green, and finally he came up out of the ravine, and a ball flies up there and lands right at my feet. And I look at it. It's that same ball that I saw down the hill. I just looked at him and I said, so this your ball, man?
Yeah.
He said, yeah, that's my ball. I said, nigga, this ain't your ball. This ain't your ball. I just saw that ball down there. It says Japanese writing all over the ball. How are you going to say, no, man, I had to, it's like, right? That's how far he would go. This one day, man, we got into a thing. And he hit the ball straight into the water. But he's going to drop his ball halfway up the lake. And I said, you can't drop up here. Your ball crossed the boundary back at the beginning. He said, no, man, my ball hooked into the lake. I said, I'm standing right next to you. It didn't hook into the lake. It went straight into the hazard. He said, no, man. I said, you got to drop the ball back there. No, nigga, I'm dropping my ball right here. And I said, today, you are dropping your ball back there. I ain't having it today.
Right.
Man, we went to a place that couldn't have been no darker. And that day, when I pulled my putter out of the bag, I realized what I was capable of.
Right.
And it was a revelation to me. That was the closest I came to killing somebody.
Wow.
I put my putter in my bag. I took my bag. I walked off the course because I realized that I was right at that line, and I realized what I was capable of. Mm-hmm. So, as an actor, have I ever killed anybody? In Vietnam, different thing. But have I ever willfully done that? No, but I got close enough that I can play somebody who does do that.
Right.
You understand? So Norman is that guy. Mm-hmm. They pushed him to that point because they killed his wife. Exactly. And everybody's covering it up. Exactly. And I'm going to find out one way or another who killed my wife. And it's somebody in my family.
Right.
Which makes it worse.
Yeah.
So the characters like me, I borrow from me to the characters in places that I know that I can use, because that only useful thing about that dark part of me is in a character that I play. I have to manage it in life. In life, I know enough now to walk away, now never to let myself get to that place where, because soon as my face starts twitching, I'm on the other side, and anything can happen.
Yeah. The artist roadmap. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, the artist roadmap is. I was looking for. I don't have a book on this. It's not on my desk, but the artist roadmap is the title of my published book and the title of my audio book. Oh, there it is. Look at there. There it is. And navigating your way through show business. So the roadmap is show business. Two different words. Show is highlighted because this book is about show. The next book will be about business, how to monetize it. So you have to learn how to become the accomplished artist. And then there's a lot to learning about that. It's not just learning about how to act. I take you through the whole aspect of all the dynamics when it comes to become a good actor. But there's also in terms of how do you have a career? How do you manage the people around you? How do you manage the people who, how do you manage the exchange in your life? There's four levels of exchange. There's criminal exchange, people who are stealing from you, the haters. There are the unequal exchange, people who don't give what they get. You give them $10, they give you $5 worth of, worth, life, energy, and such. There's equal exchange. I give you $10, you give me $10 worth of whatever back. There's exchange in abundance where I give you 10 and you give me 15 back. And then there's ride or die. Those people that's got your back no matter what, and that's just pure love. And you got to be able to identify every single person who's on your bus that makes a difference in your life, who's on your bus and identify who they are so that you can place them in the proper position where they go. Because some people are riding next to you. Some people are riding in the row behind you. Some people are in the third row back. And those people that are in the fourth row and back in the back, do they deserve to even be on the bus?
Right.
And you got to be able to put them off the bus. Not that you don't hate them. It's just the fact that you can't ride on my bus. I'll see you at the family dinners at Christmas and we'll be nice and cordial. But on a day-to-day basis, you bring bad energy to me. You ain't for me. And
no value at all.
Their negative value, you take it away, because everything at the end of the day is about frequency. It's like, what are people bringing to what kind of frequency? Is it a chord structure where there's harmony? We play at different notes, but it's harmony, it's harmonic.
Right.
Or is it a chord, or is it discord? And you want to handle the discord. You want to understand relationship now. Who you know and how do you manage those relationships? You want to understand, balance. You want to understand, you want to understand what your dream is. What is your dream? You want to understand, most importantly, why. Why are you doing this? So that you understand your purpose. If you understand your purpose, then everything falls in alignment with that. So I understood my purpose. So therefore, my purpose is my North Star. It gets me up every day without fail, looking forward to doing what I'm doing. So it ain't a job. I don't work. I live in my art, but I don't work.
I love that. Mr. Lawson, listen, I know I could talk to you forever. Like seriously, it's just so much stuff to learn. We have to do a part two. We have to do a part two whenever you
We
have
should.
time. I know you got things to do. Tell everybody, give everybody your social media handle, ways that they can get connected with you. It's still so much
You,
stuff to talk about. I want to talk
you,
about the school, and we got to do a
yeah,
part two.
yeah. What you got rolling down here at the bottom is really the way to get in touch with me. Or one of the things you can to get to just about everything is you can go on IG at Mr. Richard Lawson
Mhm.
and go to my bio. There's a link tree. You
Mhm.
click that
It has
link tree,
everything on
and
it.
it has everything in that link tree. Is you can
Classes,
find me.
everything.
Everything is in that link tree.
Everything. And we already have it already connected to everything. So once guys they go over, you can also go over and be able to click the link in the description as well. We have
Oh,
everything
good.
attached in there.
Oh,
The
cool.
book, part of the book, everything's in the
Oh,
description
beautiful.
on this live right now. So we got you covered, Mr.
Beautiful.
Lawson. Don't even worry about
Yes.
that. We got you, man. We got you. I really want to thank you again. Before we leave, any words to anybody that may be low in spirit? It's a lot going on in the world. Maybe down, maybe thinking about giving up on that goal or that dream or whatever. Any words of encouragement that you can drop on anybody?
Well, I just got through talking about the why.
Hmm.
You gotta connect with the why. If you do that, then you understand there's a reason for you doing whatever you're doing, and the why. Then no's cannot penetrate. They can't stop you. Then the haters can't touch you. Then the disbelievers can't slow you down. If you understand why, it's an interesting thing. It's like it, it's like being pregnant.
Wow.
The why is your pregnancy because it's your baby. And it's like a woman who's had a baby. She has a purpose.
Hmm.
And there's nothing more dangerous than a pregnant woman protecting her child.
Right.
So my child is my art because I understand why. And I have never let anyone compromise my why. And to give you the greatest example is that Dave Chappelle gave up $50 million for
Mhm.
his Dave Chappelle show because they wanted him to do something other than what is within his purpose. And he walked away from all that money.
Right.
Well, if you don't understand, if you don't have a why, then you can't walk away so easily. You
Right.
become, they own you. And if you have a why, then you have a strong yes and a strong no. You won't be subject to get caught up in shit that ain't for you.
Right. Right.
So
Man,
that's what I would say to folks.
that is deep. I sponged up every gem that was dropped. I sponged it up, Mr. Lawson. Seriously. I want to thank you on behalf of
Yes,
me and the entire Vibe team. We just want to tell you how much we love you.
yeah,
Um, and we definitely cheering for you totally. We wish you more blessings and more success. Whenever you dropping the next book, anything that you have going on or whatever, we would love to be connected to help promote, market, do whatever we got to do to get more eyes on it on our end to push it or whatever. Once you come on the Vibe Show, you're a part of the Vibe family now. And that's what we
yeah.
continuing to do is to grow the branches on the tree and just have it extended as far as we can extend it and just keep on growing it. We want to thank you so much. We're wishing you more blessings and more success with everything that you
Thank
have
you.
going on now and everything that you're going to have going on in the future. Thank you so much. We
Yes.
love you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. God bless you. Good luck
Absolutely. It's the
and
Vibe Show.
continue. Huh?
No, I was listening to you.
I said, continued success with your show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I really appreciate that. It's the
All
Vibe
right.
Show with my special guest, the one and only Mr. Richard Lawson. Thank you to everybody that was tuning in on the radio airwaves, and shout out to everybody that joined the live today just to enjoy this amazing interview. We want to thank all of y'all commuters. Y'all make sure y'all put y'all seatbelts on, drive home, get home safe. Again, it's the Vibe Show 97.9. Me and Mr. Lawson, we are out of here. Peace.
Out of here. Peace out.